Keisha was only 10 years old when she started attending a new school in a predominantly white neighborhood. Her family had moved to this area because of its reputation for good schools and safe streets. Keisha was excited yet nervous about making new friends and fitting in. However, her excitement quickly turned to dread as she faced relentless taunts and cruel comments from her classmates. On her first day, she walked into the classroom with a hopeful smile, but it wasn't long before the whispers started. "Why is her hair so different? She's too dark to be here." These words stung, but she tried to ignore them. As the days passed, the bullying became more overt. Children would exclude her from games, make fun of her lunches, and call her names that she had never heard before. One day, during recess, a group of kids cornered her by the swings. "Why don't you go back to where you came from?" one of them sneered. Keisha's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She ran to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall, sobbing quietly. Keisha's teachers noticed her isolation but failed to intervene effectively. They saw her as shy and introverted, not understanding the real reason behind her silence. Her parents, busy with their new jobs and adjusting to the new environment themselves, were unaware of the extent of the bullying. Keisha didn't want to burden them with her troubles, so she kept most of it to herself. Her school days were filled with dread, and she often ate lunch alone, hiding in the library to escape the cruelty. Her grades started slipping, and the once cheerful and outgoing girl became quiet and withdrawn. The bullying had a profound impact on her self-esteem, and she began to believe the harsh words her classmates hurled at her. Keisha longed for acceptance and friendship, but found none. Every day felt like a battle she was losing, and she wondered how much longer she could endure. The world seemed like a dark, unfriendly place, and Keisha felt utterly alone in her struggle. As the bullying continued, Keisha sought solace in the one place that always welcomed her without judgment, the local library. The library became her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the harsh reality of school and immerse herself in stories of far-off lands and brave heroes. The smell of old books and the quiet hum of the air conditioning provided a comforting backdrop to her afternoons spent there. One afternoon, while browsing the shelves, Keisha stumbled upon a book about famous African-American women in history. She was captivated by the stories of Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Maya Angelou, women who had faced incredible odds and yet had triumphed. Their stories resonated deeply with her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope. Keisha began to read voraciously, consuming biographies, history books, and novels featuring strong, resilient characters. She discovered a world where people like her overcame adversity and made significant contributions to society. These stories gave her a sense of identity and pride in her heritage, something the bullies had tried to strip away. The librarian, Mrs. Thompson, noticed Keisha's frequent visits and her growing pile of books. She was a kind, elderly woman with a warm smile and a knack for finding the perfect book for every reader. One day, she approached Keisha as she sat at a table, engrossed in a book about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "You have a love for reading, don't you, dear?" Mrs. Thompson said, taking a seat across from her. Keisha looked up, surprised by the interruption but comforted by Mrs. Thompson's gentle demeanor. "Yes, I do. I love learning about people who changed the world." Mrs. Thompson smiled. "Books can be powerful allies. They can teach us, inspire us, and help us find strength we didn't know we had. If you ever need help finding something to read, just let me know." From that day on, Mrs. Thompson became a mentor and a friend to Keisha. She recommended books, discussed their themes, and encouraged Keisha to write about her own experiences. Under Mrs. Thompson's guidance, Keisha started a journal where she poured out her thoughts, fears, and dreams. Writing became another form of solace for Keisha. It allowed her to process her emotions and articulate the pain she felt. It also helped her envision a future where she could rise above the cruelty she faced daily. Slowly but surely, Keisha began to rebuild her self-esteem and develop a quiet resilience. As the months passed, Keisha's visits to the library became a cherished routine. The stories she read and the support she received from Mrs. Thompson fortified her spirit. She still faced bullying at school, but now she had an inner strength that helped her endure it. She was no longer just a victim. She was a young girl with dreams and aspirations, inspired by the legacies of those who came before her. One day, during a particularly tough week at school, Keisha found herself at the library, as usual, seeking refuge among the books. Mrs. Thompson noticed Keisha's distress and decided it was time to introduce her to something new. "Keisha, have you ever tried painting?" Mrs. Thompson asked, placing a set of watercolor paints and a blank canvas on the table in front of her. Keisha shook her head. "No, I've never painted before. Why don't you give it a try?" Mrs. Thompson encouraged. Sometimes, expressing yourself through art can be very therapeutic. You might discover a talent you didn't know you had. Hesitantly, Keisha picked up a paintbrush and dipped it into the vibrant colors. At first, her strokes were tentative and uncertain, but as she began to lose herself in the process, her movements became more fluid and confident. She painted a scene of a peaceful meadow, a place she had often imagined when she needed to escape her reality. As she painted, Keisha felt a sense of calm wash over her. The act of creating something beautiful gave her a sense of control and accomplishment that she rarely experienced at school. She realized that painting allowed her to communicate her emotions in a way that words sometimes couldn't. Over the next few weeks, Keisha continued to explore her newfound passion for painting. Mrs. Thompson provided her with various art supplies and encouraged her to experiment with different techniques and styles. Keisha painted everything from landscapes to portraits, each piece reflecting a part of her inner world. Word of Keisha's talent began to spread throughout the library, and soon, other patrons would stop by to admire her work. They complimented her on her use of color and the emotional depth of her paintings. For the first time in a long while, Keisha felt proud of herself and her abilities. Mrs. Thompson saw the positive impact that painting had on Keisha and decided to take it a step further. She contacted a local art teacher, Ms. Alvarez, and arranged for Keisha to take private lessons. Ms. Alvarez was a warm and encouraging mentor who helped Keisha refine her skills and develop her unique artistic voice. As Keisha grew more confident in her abilities, she began to dream of sharing her art with a wider audience. She envisioned hosting her own art exhibition one day, where she could showcase her work and inspire others who might be facing similar challenges. Keisha's transformation through art did not go unnoticed at school. Some of her classmates, who had previously bullied her, began to see her in a different light. They were intrigued by her talent and the way she expressed herself through her paintings. Slowly but surely, the dynamics at school began to shift. Keisha was no longer just the target of their cruelty. She was a talented artist who had earned their respect. A few years later, Ms. Alvarez and Mrs. Thompson approached Keisha with an exciting proposition. "Keisha," Mrs. Thompson began, her eyes sparkling with pride, "we think it's time for you to have your own art exhibition." Keisha's eyes widened in disbelief. "My own exhibition? Really?" "Absolutely," Ms. Alvarez confirmed with a warm smile. "You've developed an incredible talent, and it's time for the world to see your work. We've already spoken to a local gallery, and they are very interested in showcasing your paintings." Keisha felt a rush of emotions, excitement, fear, and an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had come a long way from the shy, bullied girl who had found solace in the library. Now, she had a chance to share her journey and her art with a broader audience. The preparations for the exhibition began in earnest. Keisha spent hours selecting her best pieces, framing them, and carefully planning the layout of the gallery. Mrs. Thompson and Ms. Alvarez were by her side every step of the way, offering guidance and encouragement. On the night of the exhibition, the gallery was filled with people. Friends, family, teachers, and even some of Keisha's former classmates attended, eager to see her artwork. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. As Keisha stood at the entrance of the gallery, greeting guests and answering questions about her paintings, she felt a profound sense of pride. Each piece on display represented a part of her journey, her struggles, her resilience, and her triumphs. One painting, in particular, drew a lot of attention. It was a self-portrait of Keisha standing in a field of wildflowers, a look of serene determination on her face. The painting was titled Growth, symbolizing her personal journey of overcoming adversity and finding her true self. As Keisha mingled with the guests, she received countless compliments and words of encouragement. Many people were moved by her story and her art, and some even purchased her paintings to take home. Towards the end of the evening, Keisha noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was one of her former bullies from school, Sarah. Keisha felt a mix of emotions as Sarah approached her, unsure of what to expect. "Keisha," Sarah began, her voice tinged with genuine admiration, "your artwork is incredible. I never knew you had this talent. I'm really sorry for how I treated you back in school." Keisha took a deep breath, feeling a wave of catharsis. "Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your words. It wasn't easy, but I've learned and grown a lot since then." Sarah nodded, her eyes sincere. "You really have. Your story is inspiring." As the night drew to a close, Keisha stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by her paintings and the people who had supported her. She realized that this exhibition was more than just a showcase of her art. It was a celebration of her resilience and her journey. Keisha knew that her story was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them with the same strength and determination that had brought her to this moment. Keisha's exhibition was more than just a local success. It became a beacon of hope and resilience for many. News of the young artist who had overcome bullying and adversity spread quickly, drawing the attention of local media. A few weeks after the exhibition, Keisha received an email from a local journalist named Lisa Carter. Lisa had heard about the exhibition and wanted to interview Keisha for a feature story. "Keisha, your story is incredibly inspiring," Lisa said during their interview at a cozy cafe. "Can you tell me more about how you started painting and what it means to you?" Keisha sipped her coffee, gathering her thoughts. "Painting was my escape. When things were tough at school, I found solace in creating something beautiful. It helped me express my feelings and find my voice." Lisa nodded, taking notes. "And how does it feel now, seeing your work appreciated by so many people?" "It's surreal," Keisha admitted. "I never imagined my art would resonate with so many. It's humbling and empowering at the same time." The article, published in the local newspaper, painted a vivid picture of Keisha's journey. It highlighted her resilience, her talent, and the support she received from her teachers and community. The piece garnered a lot of positive feedback and further elevated Keisha's profile. One day, Keisha received a phone call from a representative of a national art organization. "Keisha," the woman said, her voice brimming with enthusiasm, "we've read about your story and seen your work. We'd like to invite you to participate in our upcoming National Youth Art Competition." Keisha was stunned. "A national competition? That's incredible." "Yes," the representative confirmed. "Your story and your art have the power to inspire many more people. We believe you have a real shot at winning." Keisha accepted the invitation, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The competition was intense, with young artists from all over the country showcasing their best work. Keisha poured her heart and soul into her submission, a piece titled "Resilience," which depicted a young girl standing tall amidst a storm, symbolizing her journey through adversity. The weeks leading up to the competition were filled with anticipation and anxiety. Keisha's friends, family, and teachers rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. When the day of the competition finally arrived, Keisha felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The competition took place in a grand art gallery in the city. As Keisha walked through the exhibition hall, she was amazed by the talent and creativity on display. But she also felt a deep sense of pride in her own work. When the judges announced the winners, Keisha could hardly believe her ears. And the winner of this year's National Youth Art Competition is Keisha Williams for her piece, "Resilience." The applause was deafening as Keisha walked up to the stage to accept her award. She felt a rush of emotions: joy, gratitude, and a profound sense of accomplishment. In her acceptance speech, Keisha said, "This award is not just for me. It's for everyone who has ever faced adversity and found the strength to overcome it. My art is a reflection of my journey, and I hope it inspires others to find their own resilience." Keisha's victory at the national competition marked a turning point in her life. It opened doors to new opportunities, including scholarships, exhibitions, and collaborations with other artists. But more importantly, it solidified her belief in herself and her ability to make a difference through her art. Winning the National Youth Art Competition was just the beginning for Keisha. Her victory brought her national recognition, and soon, invitations to exhibit her work started pouring in from prestigious galleries across the country. Keisha found herself juggling school, interviews, and art projects, her life transformed by the spotlight. One evening, while working on a new painting in her small studio, Keisha received an unexpected phone call. "Hello, Keisha," the voice on the other end said warmly. "This is Sarah Jenkins, the director of the New York Art Institute. We've been following your work and would like to offer you a solo exhibition at our gallery." Keisha's heart skipped a beat. The New York Art Institute was one of the most renowned art institutions in the country. "A solo exhibition? At the New York Art Institute?" she repeated, her voice trembling with excitement. I don't know what to say. This is such an honor." "We believe in your talent, Keisha," Sarah replied. "Your story and your art have the power to inspire many. We'd love to showcase your journey and your work to a broader audience." Overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement, Keisha accepted the offer. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparation as she worked tirelessly to create a collection that would tell her story. Each painting was a piece of her heart, reflecting her struggles, triumphs, and the journey of self-discovery. When the day of the exhibition finally arrived, Keisha stood in the grand hall of the New York Art Institute, surrounded by her paintings. The gallery buzzed with anticipation as art critics, journalists, and art enthusiasts gathered to witness the unveiling of her work. As the doors opened, Keisha's heart raced. She watched in awe as people moved through the gallery, stopping to admire her paintings, some with tears in their eyes. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with many praising the emotional depth and raw honesty of her work. During the opening night, Keisha was approached by several prominent figures in the art world, including renowned art critic Michael Turner. "Keisha," he said, extending his hand, "your work is truly remarkable. It's rare to see such authenticity and passion in an artist so young. You have a bright future ahead of you." "Thank you, Mr. Turner," Keisha replied, her voice filled with emotion. "Art has always been my way of expressing myself, and to see it resonate with so many people means the world to me." The exhibition was a resounding success, earning Keisha widespread acclaim. She was featured in major art magazines, invited to speak at conferences, and received offers for collaborations from established artists. Her journey from a bullied schoolgirl to a celebrated artist became a source of inspiration for many. One evening, after a particularly successful day at the gallery, Keisha returned to her hotel room and reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the bullying she had endured, the support she had received from her art teacher, and the decision to pursue her passion despite the obstacles. Her thoughts were interrupted by a message from her former art teacher, Mrs. Adams. "Keisha, I saw the news about your exhibition. I'm so proud of you. You've come such a long way, and I always knew you had something special. Keep shining, and never stop believing in yourself." Keisha smiled, her eyes welling up with tears. She replied, "Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Your belief in me made all the difference. I couldn't have done it without you." As she lay in bed that night, Keisha felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had turned her pain into something beautiful, using her art to inspire others and make a difference. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that she had the power to overcome anything. After the success of her solo exhibition in New York, Keisha decided it was time to return home. She had achieved so much, but there was one more thing she needed to do. She wanted to visit her old high school and share her story with the students there, hoping to inspire and encourage those who might be facing similar struggles. Upon her return, Keisha contacted the principal of her former school, Mr. Harris, and requested permission to give a talk. Mr. Harris, who had followed Keisha's journey through the news, was thrilled and immediately agreed. "We'd be honored to have you, Keisha," he said. "Your story is truly inspirational, and I know our students would benefit greatly from hearing it." On the day of her visit, Keisha walked through the familiar hallways of her old school, memories flooding back. She passed by classrooms where she had once sat quietly, sketching in her notebook to escape the harsh realities of bullying. Now, she was returning as a successful artist, ready to share her journey. The school auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and staff, all eager to hear from their hometown hero. Keisha took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding with a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Hello, everyone," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "My name is Keisha, and I used to be a student here, just like you. I know what it feels like to be bullied, to feel like you don't belong. But I'm here to tell you that it gets better. You have the power to turn your pain into something beautiful." As she spoke, Keisha shared her story, the struggles she faced, the support she received from her art teacher, and the moment she decided to pursue her passion for art. She showed slides of her paintings, explaining how each piece was inspired by her experiences and emotions. The students listened intently, some with tears in their eyes. They were moved by Keisha's honesty and courage, inspired by her resilience and determination. When she finished her talk, the auditorium erupted in applause. Keisha smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment and connection with the audience. After the talk, students lined up to speak with Keisha, asking for advice and sharing their own stories. One student, a shy girl named Mia, approached Keisha with a nervous smile. "Your story really touched me. Mia said. "I love to draw too, but I'm scared to show my work to anyone." Keisha placed a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. "Don't be afraid, Mia. Your art is your voice, your way of expressing yourself. Don't let fear hold you back. Share your work with the world, and you'll be amazed at the impact it can have." As the students slowly trickled out of the auditorium, Mr. Harris approached Keisha, his eyes shining with pride. "You've made a real difference here today, Keisha. Thank you for sharing your story with us." Keisha nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "It was my pleasure, Mr. Harris. I just hope I could inspire even one student to keep going, to believe in themselves." Before leaving the school, Keisha took a moment to visit the art room. She found Mrs. Adams, her former art teacher, sitting at her desk. Mrs. Adams looked up and smiled warmly. "Keisha, it's so good to see you." Keisha hugged her, feeling a rush of emotions. "Thank you, Mrs. Adams, for everything. You believed in me when no one else did." Mrs. Adams smiled, her eyes misty. "You've always had the talent, Keisha. I'm just glad I could help you see it. Keep shining, and never forget where you came from." As Keisha left the school, she felt a sense of closure. She had come full circle, returning to the place where her journey began and sharing her story with those who needed to hear it. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that she had the power to make a difference. After her visit to the high school, Keisha felt a strong urge to reconnect with her old friends. Despite the challenges she faced, there were a few people who had stood by her side during her difficult years at school. She wanted to thank them for their support and show them how far she had come. Keisha reached out to her childhood friend, Jasmine, who had been her confidant and shoulder to cry on during those tough times. They arranged to meet at a local cafe where they used to hang out after school. As Keisha walked into the cafe, she saw Jasmine waiting at a corner table, her face lighting up with a big smile. "Keisha!" Jasmine exclaimed, standing up to hug her. "It's been too long. I've been following your success, and I'm so proud of you." Keisha returned the hug, feeling a rush of warmth. "Thank you, Jasmine. It's so good to see you again. I've missed you." They sat down, ordered coffee, and began catching up on each other's lives. Jasmine talked about her job as a social worker, helping at-risk youth find their path, while Keisha shared stories from her art exhibitions and travels. "You've really made a name for yourself," Jasmine said, her eyes filled with admiration. "But tell me, how did you manage to push through all the negativity and bullying back in the day?" Keisha took a sip of her coffee, gathering her thoughts. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "There were times when I wanted to give up. But art was my escape, my way of expressing everything I couldn't put into words. And having friends like you, who believed in me, made all the difference." Jasmine smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze Keisha's hand. "I'm glad I could be there for you. You've always been so talented, Keisha. I knew you were destined for great things." As they continued talking, Keisha realized how much she had missed these simple moments of connection. Reconnecting with Jasmine felt like reclaiming a part of herself that had been lost amidst the chaos of her career. After their coffee date, Keisha decided to visit another old friend, Marcus, who had always stood up for her when she was bullied. She found Marcus at a local community center where he volunteered as a basketball coach for underprivileged kids. "Keisha!" Marcus called out, his face breaking into a grin as he spotted her. "Look at you, all famous and everything." Keisha laughed, hugging him tightly. "Hey, Marcus! It's so good to see you. How have you been?" They sat on the bleachers, watching the kids play basketball while they caught up. Marcus talked about his work at the community center and how he was trying to make a difference in the lives of young kids, giving them the support and mentorship they needed. "I always knew you'd do something amazing," Marcus said, his tone serious. "You've got that fire in you, Keisha. I'm glad you never let those bullies put it out." Keisha felt a lump in her throat, touched by his words. "Thank you, Marcus. You have no idea how much your support meant to me back then. You always stood up for me, and I'll never forget that." Marcus smiled, patting her on the back. "We've got to look out for each other, right? And now, you're out there showing the world what you're made of. I'm proud of you, Keisha." As Keisha left the community center, she felt a renewed sense of strength and gratitude. Reconnecting with her old friends reminded her of where she came from and the people who had helped her along the way. It reinforced her belief that no matter how far she had come, she would always carry a piece of her past with her, grounding her in her journey. Keisha's return to her hometown and the high school visit didn't go unnoticed. Local media outlets caught wind of her story, especially how she had overcome severe bullying to achieve success as a renowned artist. Soon, Keisha found herself at the center of media attention, with requests for interviews pouring in. One afternoon, Keisha received a call from a well-known journalist, Rachel Johnson, who hosted a popular talk show that focused on inspiring stories. Rachel invited Keisha for an interview to discuss her journey from being bullied in school to becoming a successful artist. Feeling that her story might inspire others, Keisha agreed to the interview. On the day of the taping, she arrived at the studio, where Rachel greeted her warmly. "Keisha, thank you so much for being here today," Rachel said, shaking her hand. "Your story is incredibly inspiring, and I'm honored to share it with our audience." "Thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm excited to be here," Keisha replied, smiling. As they sat down in front of the cameras, Rachel began the interview by asking Keisha about her experiences growing up and the challenges she faced. "I understand you had a difficult time in high school," Rachel started. "Can you tell us a little about what you went through?" Keisha took a deep breath, thinking back to those tough years. "Yes, it was very challenging. I was bullied a lot because of my race and because I was different. It was hard to fit in, and I often felt very alone." Rachel nodded sympathetically. "That must have been incredibly tough. How did you cope with all the negativity?" "Art was my sanctuary," Keisha explained. "It was the one thing that brought me peace and allowed me to express my emotions. No matter how hard things got, I always turned to my sketchbook and paints. It was my way of coping and staying strong." Rachel leaned in, clearly moved by Keisha's story. "And despite all the bullying, you've achieved incredible success as an artist. What motivated you to keep pushing forward?" Keisha smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that I was more than the labels and insults. I wanted to show that I could rise above the hate and create something beautiful. And I wanted to inspire others who might be going through similar struggles, to let them know that they can overcome too." The audience, captivated by Keisha's story, applauded. Rachel then shifted the conversation to Keisha's recent achievements and her visit to her old high school. "I heard you recently went back to your high school to speak to the students. How was that experience?" Rachel asked. Keisha nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It was very emotional. Going back brought up a lot of memories, both good and bad. But it also gave me a chance to see how far I've come and to share my story with the students. I wanted them to know that no matter what they're going through, they can achieve their dreams." Rachel smiled warmly. And I'm sure your visit made a huge impact on those students. You're living proof that resilience and perseverance can lead to incredible things. As the interview wrapped up, Rachel thanked Keisha for sharing her story and for being an inspiration to many. Keisha, your story is a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of following one's passion. Thank you for being here today and for inspiring so many with your journey, Rachel said. Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure, Keisha replied, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The interview aired a few days later, receiving overwhelming positive feedback. People from all over reached out to Keisha, sharing how her story had inspired them. Keisha felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that she had touched so many lives. The media attention from her interview with Rachel Johnson spread far and wide, and it wasn't long before Keisha's story reached the ears of her former classmates and bullies. Among them were Jessica and Lauren, the two girls who had been particularly cruel to her during high school. They couldn't believe that the girl they had tormented had become such a celebrated figure. One afternoon, while Keisha was visiting a local art gallery to prepare for her upcoming exhibit, she received a surprising message on social media. It was from Jessica, who had seen the interview and wanted to meet and apologize in person. Keisha felt a mix of emotions reading the message: anger, curiosity, and a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. After some contemplation, Keisha agreed to meet Jessica and Lauren at a cafe in town. She felt that facing them could finally put the past to rest. When Keisha arrived at the cafe, she spotted Jessica and Lauren sitting at a table in the corner. They looked nervous and out of place, a stark contrast to their high school days when they ruled the school halls with their popularity. Taking a deep breath, Keisha approached them. "Hi, Keisha," Jessica greeted, her voice shaky. "Thanks for agreeing to meet with us." Keisha nodded, taking a seat across from them. "I was surprised to hear from you. What did you want to talk about?" Jessica glanced at Lauren before speaking. "We saw your interview with Rachel Johnson. We had no idea what you went through in high school. We wanted to apologize for how we treated you. It was awful, and we were awful." Lauren, usually the more outspoken of the two, looked down at her hands. "We were young and stupid. That's no excuse, but we've grown up and realized how wrong we were. We're really sorry, Keisha." Keisha listened, her expression calm but guarded. She had replayed this moment in her mind many times, imagining what she would say if she ever faced her bullies again. "You have no idea how much pain you caused me," Keisha began, her voice steady. "But I've moved past it. I found strength in my art and in myself. It's taken me a long time to heal, and I'm still working on it. Your apologies are appreciated, but they don't erase what happened." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "We know, and we don't expect you to forgive us right away. We just wanted you to know how sorry we are." Keisha nodded slowly. "I appreciate that you reached out. I found my own path and made peace with my past. I hope you've learned from your mistakes and become better people because of it." Lauren finally looked up, her eyes sincere. "We have, Keisha. We really have. And seeing what you've achieved, despite everything, is truly inspiring." The conversation ended on a somber but hopeful note. Keisha left the cafe feeling lighter, as if a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She didn't forgive them entirely, but she had confronted her past and could now fully embrace her future. The day of Keisha's art exhibit had finally arrived, and the gallery was bustling with excitement. Her story had drawn significant attention, and the event was highly anticipated. Friends, family, art enthusiasts, and media outlets filled the gallery, eager to see the work of the artist who had overcome so much adversity. The gallery itself was transformed into a vibrant space that reflected Keisha's journey. Her paintings, sculptures, and installations were strategically placed to guide visitors through the phases of her life, from the pain and struggle of her high school years to the triumph and empowerment of her present. Each piece told a story, rich with emotion and resilience. Keisha stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. She wore a sleek, black dress that contrasted beautifully with her radiant smile. Her parents stood proudly by her side, watching as people admired their daughter's work. As Keisha mingled with the guests, she noticed familiar faces in the crowd. Her high school art teacher, Mrs. Thompson, had come to support her. "I wouldn't have missed this for the world," Mrs. Thompson said, giving Keisha a warm hug. "I always knew you had something special." "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," Keisha replied, feeling a rush of gratitude. "Your support meant everything to me." Reporters approached Keisha throughout the evening, eager to get her thoughts on the exhibit and her journey. She spoke with grace and humility, sharing her story with the hope that it would inspire others facing similar challenges. As the evening progressed, Keisha found herself standing before her centerpiece, a large, abstract painting titled Resilience. The painting was a bold mix of colors and textures, symbolizing the chaos and beauty of her journey. It was her favorite piece, encapsulating everything she had endured and overcome. While she stood there, taking in the reactions of the guests, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she was surprised to see her former bullies, Jessica and Lauren, standing there. They looked different, humbled perhaps, dressed in simple, elegant attire that didn't draw attention away from the art. "We just wanted to say congratulations," Jessica said, her voice sincere. "Your work is incredible." Lauren nodded, looking around the gallery. "It's really inspiring to see how far you've come." Keisha smiled softly. "Thank you. It means a lot to hear that from you." As they walked away, Keisha felt a sense of closure. She had not only faced her past, but had turned it into something beautiful and meaningful. The exhibit was a testament to her strength and resilience, a celebration of her ability to transform pain into art. The night continued with more conversations, laughter, and applause. Keisha's exhibit was a resounding success, and she knew this was only the beginning. She had found her voice through her art, and there was so much more she wanted to say. As the gallery began to empty and the evening drew to a close, Keisha stood back and looked at her work. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment and pride. Her journey had been long and challenging, but it had led her to this moment, a moment where she could stand tall and proud, knowing she had turned her dreams into reality. Years after her first successful exhibit, Keisha had become a renowned artist, her works displayed in galleries around the world. She was celebrated not only for her talent, but also for the powerful narratives her art conveyed. Her pieces often addressed themes of resilience, empowerment, and the journey from adversity to triumph, resonating deeply with audiences everywhere. Keisha's influence extended beyond the art world. She became a sought-after speaker, sharing her story at schools, conferences, and community events. Her journey from a bullied black girl to a celebrated artist served as a beacon of hope for many. She inspired countless individuals to pursue their passions and stand up against injustice. One sunny afternoon, Keisha returned to her high school to give a talk. The auditorium was filled with students, teachers, and even some of her former classmates. As she stood on the stage, memories of her high school years flooded back, but she faced them with a sense of peace and accomplishment. "Thank you for having me," Keisha began, her voice clear and confident. "Standing here today, I'm reminded of the challenges I faced in this very place. But those challenges shaped me, fueled my passion, and led me to where I am now. I want each of you to know that no matter what you're going through, you have the strength to overcome it and turn it into something beautiful." As Keisha spoke, she noticed a girl sitting in the front row, her eyes wide with admiration. After the talk, the girl approached her, clutching a sketchbook. "Hi, Keisha," the girl said shyly. "My name is Maya. Your story really inspired me. I love to draw, but sometimes I feel like I'll never be good enough." Keisha smiled warmly and knelt down to look at Maya's sketches. "These are wonderful, Maya. You have a real talent. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're not good enough. Keep drawing, keep creating, and believe in yourself." Maya's face lit up with a smile. "Thank you. I will." Leaving the school that day, Keisha felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had come full circle, transforming her pain into purpose and using her experiences to uplift others. Keisha's legacy continued to grow. She established an art foundation to support young, underprivileged artists, providing them with resources and mentorship. The foundation hosted annual exhibitions, showcasing the works of emerging talents and giving them a platform to shine. At one of these exhibitions, Keisha met a young artist named Jamal. His work was raw and powerful, reflecting his struggles and dreams. "Your art speaks volumes, Jamal," Keisha told him. "It's clear you have a lot to say. I'd love to mentor you and help you develop your voice." Jamal looked at Keisha with gratitude and excitement. "That would mean the world to me. Thank you." Through her foundation, Keisha not only nurtured new talent, but also fostered a community of artists who supported and inspired each other. Her own journey was a testament to the transformative power of art and the importance of giving back. As Keisha stood in her studio one evening, looking at her latest piece, a vibrant, abstract representation of hope and resilience, she reflected on her journey. From the halls of her high school to the walls of prestigious galleries, she had come a long way. Her art had become her voice, her weapon against adversity, and her gift to the world. She picked up her brush and added the final stroke to the painting, a bright splash of color that seemed to burst with life. Stepping back, she smiled with satisfaction. Her work was never done. There were always more stories to tell, more hearts to touch, and more lives to inspire. Keisha's legacy was one of courage, creativity, and compassion. She had turned her struggles into a source of strength, and in doing so, had given countless others the courage to do the same. Her journey was a powerful reminder that no matter where you start, you have the power to create a future filled with possibility and hope. The end of her story was just the beginning for so many others, and Keisha knew that her greatest work of art was the impact she had on the world around her.